right in this area near the huge cross you see off to your right. Now, they'd started a small settlement, but fierce conflict ensued quite quickly for them. For you see, there was a French fleet of soldiers coming down from the north intent on taking them over. The French were confident they could do so, but they had not bargained for hurricane season. And unfortunately, there was a huge storm brewing up in the Atlantic. It wound up coming in and thrashing the entire French fleet into toothpicks all over the Matanzas Bay just south of town. Well, now, out of almost 2,000 French soldiers, only less than 200 survived. They stumbled ashore, wandered up the coast to be captured by the Spanish, of course. But once the Spanish had them, they thought, what are we going to do with them all? We don't have shelter or food enough for ourselves yet. And so they decided to give the French a big ultimatum. They said, you must join us and become Catholic now, or die by the sword right here. Well, folks, these Frenchmen, they were staunch Protestants. They were not about to convert. And so their throats were slit, their bodies thrown into the waters of the bay, where it is said the bay turned a blood-red hue for 3 whole days. Now, since then, ghostly things have appeared there. On certain moonlit nights, the bay takes on that blood-red hue again. Sailors report that lifeless eyes rise and stare at them from over the edge of their boats. Some people have seen full-bodied apparitions of Spanish soldiers, and still others report phantom ships come sailing in at night. But now, Texas Tim, this was not the correct route right now. I'm sorry. You should have, I have to warn now. Well, folks, Texas Tim has just decided to navigate us into the grounds of the most terrifying building in the whole state of Florida. What? It's even on the National Registry of Haunted Places. You see, it was built in 1891 with one purpose, to hold in every vile and wicked energy you can imagine. Malice and greed and revenge and vengeance, and I tell you what, even though dead bodies have been drug out of this building decades ago, that doesn't mean the spirits don't still linger. Many professional ghost hunters have been here. Paranormal seekers, kindred spirits. You may have seen some of the
Look through
TV
your glasses
shows.
and see if you can see a ghost.
Well, they have found very interesting evidence here. It's our old jail of St. Augustine. Now, it's a pretty pink and white building, a Queen Anne Victorian style. You might even think it doesn't look like a prison at all. But folks, as lovely as it is on the outside, I can guarantee you it is not at all lovely on the inside. It never was, and it still is not. Well, during the day, you could come and take a tour and hear every morbid detail of the history of this building. But for now, let me just explain. It was horribly overcrowded. There was no electricity, no running water. There were toilet buckets that overflowed. There was disease everywhere, and torturous punishments for the inmates as well. It got so horrific in there, they shut it down completely in 1953. Well,
that was
like
3
I
years
said,
before
just because
Papa
the dead
was
bodies
even
have been drug
born.
out doesn't mean the spirits don't still linger. Staff members and guests alike have reported the feelings of cold,
See some fake
unseen
ghosts?
hands on their shoulders.
What
Some
about the
of them
real
have
ones?
felt like they've
Look.
been pushed down the stairs, and still others have left the building with scratches on their body that they can't explain. It's very odd indeed. Now, some of the ghosts in here we recognize, and we've even given them names. There's one that's called the Whistler. The Whistler is a very interactive ghost. You know, he actually whistles out tunes in the main cell block if someone whistles to him. We've come to find out that his favorite song is actually Dixie. He whistles it so often. But there's another well-known shadow ghost here that seems to be much more sinister. It shows up as the darkest shadow around. It's not even a human-like figure we hear anyway. It's elongated and creeping along the ceilings, down the walls, and even in between the bars of the cell blocks. It's menacing, though, and intelligent. Our staff members report it seems to follow them out of the corner of their eye. They wonder if it's simply a mixture of all the wicked, pent-up feelings and trauma here. Maybe it's following people trying to find a way out. Certainly hope the crawler has not escaped
I think
tonight.
it's inside her.
Well, now, if you were brave enough, you might want to come on our old Jail After Dark experience, and you could find some ghosts like this, perhaps. Well, professional teams have captured interesting evidence in the form of EVPs. Does anyone know what an EVP is?
What's an EVP?
Electronic voice phenomenon. Did I hear somebody say it almost? Well, it's a recording of a voice that's kind of embedded in white noise, and we believe they give messages from beyond, and this is how we capture it. Well, one team captured a message that answers an age-old question about our jail. Many people wonder, how many officially died here? How many were on death row? Well, would you like to hear the EVP that answers that question?
Yes.
We'll play it for you. Listen carefully. See what you think.
Absolutely.
You'll hear it again. They were only 8. Listen one more time.
Listen.
They were only 8.
They
were only 8. Well, this is actually good news for us here, for the official jail records indicate just 8 executions. But there have been so many rumors and legends of more, we were never quite sure. It's good to have confirmation from the world beyond, we figure. But you don't have to be a professional to capture such messages. There was a man on Old Jail After Dark one night who was in the area of death row. He caught a message that seems to say, his belly. His belly.
His belly?
But we do know that perhaps the most wicked inmate on death row was George Hawkins. His crime was that he took a knife. He sliced all the way up a man's belly and then took his bare hands and pulled his guts out.
Whoa.
Horrible.
Blech.
The man died, of course, and
Of course.
George Hawkins was put on death row, and he may still be here lingering and bragging about his crime. Listen to this EVP. See what you think. It seems to say, his belly. His belly. Oh, gives me the chills every time I hear that. But like I said, if you want to have experiences like this, you could come to our Old Jail After Dark experience and see who you find.
Do you want to do that tomorrow?
And yet, people on these tours still report that they think sometimes the spirits try to make a jailbreak from here. We've gotten email messages and the like saying, I saw something strange in my mirror at my hotel or at home after one of these tours. Some people just feel a heaviness about them.
Did you hear that?
But my suggestion is,
The ghosts are
the
going to follow
ghosts
us
will
home.
respect you if you tell them to leave you alone. So every time I leave this rather wicked area, I simply say, don't follow me, ghost, and I brush them off. It seems to work. No one has followed me home yet.
ask them to follow us.
So if at any time on this tour you feel that uneasiness, that heaviness in the air, simply say, don't follow me.
No,
I think you'll be fine.
you may not try to climb out.
But
I don't want you to become a ghost
return
on my
out of
ghost
this
tour.
Sinister area. I do want to tell you about a man who lived in St. Augustine who was on the other side of the law. In the mid-1800s, Judge John Stickney was a prominent citizen here, well known and pretty well liked if you were on the right side of the law anyway. But you know, these days, Judge Stickney seems to be better known by his otherworldly occupations. Now, our good judge unfortunately passed away in 1882, just after Halloween. He had the dengue fever, in fact. It was very unfortunate. But he was laid to rest at our Huguenot cemetery, which will be on your right coming up after a little drive. He lay to rest there quite peacefully for about 20 years, but then his family wanted him exhumed and brought to a plot that they had up north for their family. So they hired a grave digger. And this is when things got a little strange for our good judge. Well, that grave digger went to work. He dug and got that coffin exposed out in the cemetery, and then he decided he needed a break. He left. And about that time, two rather drunk local gentlemen wandered by, very curious about this coffin. They became so curious that they even opened it up. Well, inside they saw bones, of course, but then they also saw a glint of something gold coming from the skull. Now, these men wondered. They looked. Indeed, Judge Stickney had had very poor dental health. Many of his teeth had been filled with gold, and now these gentlemen thought they had an opportunity. They reached down in his skull, pulled out those golden teeth, put them in their pockets, and fled the scene. But about this time the gravedigger returned. He realized, uh-oh, Someone's been tampering with my charge here, but what could he do? He just had to close that coffin and send it on its way north. No one would be any the wiser, right?
Right.
Or would they?
Or would they?
Well, about 2 weeks later, locals here discovered a new apparition haunting the Huguenot cemetery. A tall, well-dressed gentleman wearing a top hat. Indeed, it was Judge Stickney. He wanders still to this day, sometimes looking at the ground for his golden teeth, we figure. But he's not alone at the Huguenot cemetery. It's known as Spirit Central here. Many apparitions, misty figures, orbs, sounds of moaning and disembodied laughter. All this happened at the Huguenot. Well, here's why.
Say goodbye.
It was started in 1821.
Bye.
You
See
see,
you
a
in the next
supply
video.
ship had come in from
If you want
Havana,
to see
Cuba.
more,
Normally,
just
this was
come
great news for the
to
town, but none of the
Saint
goods were brought
Augustine.
into shore. This was
Saint
odd. Someone had to be
Augustine
sent out to
ghost
investigate.
tours.
And when that man got on board that ship, he found that everyone was dead, including the captain. Well, this was horrible, but supplies were supplies, and so he got a team of folks to go with him.